Hello, welcome back to my channel. Yeah, it's been a good hot summer. Well, I say good, I find it a little bit too intense, which is why I'm dressed very casually for once. And yeah, I'm back in Edinburgh, and having spent a short while in, no, not back in Edinburgh, I'm back in London. Where am I? I don't know what's going on. This heat is damaging my brain. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to go into something a little bit interesting for this session. This is a little discursive piece I've thought about on when to give up on a story and when not to. Now, what I mean by that is not when to give up writing it. I'm assuming that you've written it. So this is when to give up sending it out. Because if you, like me, have had several stories rejected umpteen times by different magazines, you come to think, well, this one can't be any good. There mustn't be anything here that's really appealing to the audience, or to editors at least. So maybe I should just forget it, push it aside, and just, chalk it up to bad luck. But actually, I don't know. I think there are ways you can figure out which stories are worth holding on to, which stories are worth persevering with. So I'll go into that in a little bit, but I'm going to look at some odd outliers in my own oeuvre, and all of these stories are featured on this channel. So the stories I'm going to look at are Holloway, Aloha, and the Peg, not to be confused with the Steely Dan song of the same name, which is very good. Anyway, yeah, so these are three stories that were all rejected over a dozen times and then finally accepted for publication. So basically what I'm saying here is that there are stories which you probably, you could have lost faith in because you've had umpteen rejections, and then all of a sudden an editor says, oh, I really like that, something, we've got space for that in our magazine, let's publish that. And you sort of think, well, why that editor? Why when everyone else seemed to be utterly disinterested, did that one story with that one editor break through? And perhaps if you think hard enough about it, you'll start to see a pattern, and it might not be one you expect. So let's go into it a little bit further. So all of these stories are also featured in, are all of them in this? No, two of them. The Peg and Aloha are in, which side? That side's better probably. Running Coyote, Fallen Star, available on Amazon. So if you want to read these stories instead of listening to me read them, you'll find them in there along with a whole bunch of others. 18 stories were published in magazines, so they must be half decent. I'm terrible at selling my own work, am I? Anyway, so yes. So why did so many editors turn down those three stories? Well, let's have a look at them. So we'll start with Holloway. Now Holloway is a very odd story. It's in a strange genre. It's kind of a blend of three things. It's got a kind of chick lit, that's the thing, isn't it? Chick lit opening where it's about a woman who has had an ill-advised relationship with a boss at work. It's gone sour, and she takes revenge by throwing a can of paint over his car. This is not a spoiler, it's not really that central to the story, but that's how the thing opens. And it's hopefully a little bit funny, it's a little bit sad, it's a dramatic introduction to the character. I think it set off a lot of editors down a particular path in their thinking about where the story was going to go. Then it takes a right turn, and I don't want to spoil it too much for you, but it then goes into a very strange territory and ends up with a kind of magical realist occurrence. Which I think is cathartic and does fit with the theme of rejection and betrayal and broken hearts. So it did confuse a lot of people. I guess they thought, well, I don't really know how to place this because it starts off in like one thing and then it sort of turns into something else. And I did that deliberately. That was the point of the story. But for a lot of people, it just baffled them. Now, I did get some notes back from an editor, and some of those notes were quite good. And after I'd heard from a couple of people on a few pointers, I did re-edit the story, only very slightly, just, shortened the opening a little bit, made it a little bit sharper, a little bit more focused, maybe made the transition from one to the other better. And yeah, it improved the story quite a bit, maybe 10%. And then finally, a magazine, an online publication called Defunct, which I will link to below, published it quite recently, without many revisions, which is nice. And yeah, so that story has now entered my list of stories, my published stories, which was a great relief because I really liked that story. When I was finished, I thought, yeah, I've done something interesting here. This is different. This is powerful, and I could see the place I was writing about because I'd been there. This is based on a real sort of location, even though something very strange happened. So it was a personal project of mine that I felt strongly about, and I was very disappointed when so many editors didn't see anything in it, and then finally one did. So there we go. What can we learn from that? Well, it's always going to be a hard sell when you're blending genres or flipping between genres, wrong-footing the audience. And then magic realism is a bit of a hard sell anyway. So probably that was the combination of those two things. Maybe I targeted some of the wrong magazines. Anyway, so there's another one which got published called Aloha. Now that's in this rather nice collection of short stories called Ab Terra. This is the 2021 volume. And there are, I think there was a previous volume. Weirdly enough, had an author called Stephanie Boyter, who is no obvious relation, but possibly a distant relation. I think she's Australian, maybe Kiwi. Anyway, she was published in the previous volume, and I was published in this one, which is very nice. Now, Aloha went to, let's have a look, 13. So rejected, like Holloway, rejected by 12 and then finally accepted by the 13th editor. Aloha is a science fiction story, pretty straightforward science fiction, set on the planet Earth in pretty much here and now, but with some very hard science concepts and futurism, a little bit of futurism. So it's not really the here and now, it's, you know, a slightly alternative version of the here and now, I suppose. And science fiction is always a bit of a hard sell. Now, there's a lot of magazines that don't specify that they don't publish it. And my attitude is always, well, if you don't rule it out, then I'm, you know, every so often I'm going to send you one. Because I just don't see why people look down on the genre at all. Maybe I'll do another piece about science fiction specifically and what it means to me and why I write in that genre quite frequently. But it is a difficult genre for people who don't really understand it. And also with Aloha, I think it had quite a lot going on with the characters, with the world building, and it seemed to stop slightly abruptly for some people. Maybe it felt like an extract from a novel. I mean, it's not. It could be, potentially, but it's not. So I think maybe that was the hard sell for a lot of people, was some interesting ideas, some engaging characters, and then it just stops. But I think it stops meaningfully when the points had been made that I wanted to make. So I always liked it, and I was always disappointed. Science fiction is almost harder to get published in. I don't know why. I think I don't know. There's so many trends and fashions within science fiction that if you pitch your story in the wrong direction, just not going to get it. But anyway, someone did eventually and published it in a short story collection, which is very nice. I haven't actually looked to see if that's in bookshops, but I guess it should be. It's an American publication. Is it American or Canadian? Let me see. United States. Yeah, Brain Mill Press. Very interesting. Anyway, yeah, editors were great to work with. They did suggest some changes, all of which improved the story. I think I made them all, and it's a very well set out book. A lot of good stories in there. Actually, I should probably read more of them. Put that on my to read pile. Anyway, so that story is also here on this channel in a slightly earlier form. Now, the third thing I'm going to talk about is the peg. Even though this is technically literary fiction, straight down the line literary fiction, set in the here and now, no weirdness, no magic realism, no spaceships, no aliens, it is in a slightly unusual format within the literary fiction genre, in that it is a slice of life written in the form of a letter. So the whole thing, it starts off, in fact it's in here, it's published by the Freshwater Review, a very nice publication that's been running for quite a while. Volume 24 this is. It's another American publication. I do like the Americans, they seem to be very open. This is from the College of St. Scholastica in Duluth, Minnesota, I believe. Wow, there you go. A place I'll almost certainly never go, but not because it's not interesting, it's just, when am I going to end up there? But anyway, it's a fascinating volume, very nicely put together. Short volume, but mostly it's a combination of everything. It's got art, poetry, and it's got 3 short stories. So mine was one of the 3 short stories that was published in this, which is very nice to be selected. And is there an illustration? No. But what I did like about it is they included this section, which I had in the original written version, which is a crossed out section, and I wanted that in the story in the printed version. So that's obviously not, I don't think that appears in the well, there's no equivalent of speaking it. I don't think I spoke that section. I could be wrong, I don't know, we'll see. Maybe read it, listen to it if you like, and you'll see. So yeah, it starts off, I was digressing, Dear Josie. I think I think I must have had a Steely Dan thing going on in my head when I wrote the title, The Peg, and then Dear Josie, because Josie is also a very good song by Steely Dan. There you go. A one for the Dan fans. The Danners. And it ends, bye for now. And then the names of the writers. I'm not going to spoil it. So like, it's a short 2-page letter effectively, and they printed it all in italics, which is again what I wanted. So it's an unusual genre, and I think it was published in a poetry magazine because it's very much about use of language, about casual way of writing that hides as much as it reveals, and there's a lot between the lines. It was sort of like a little writing exercise for me in a way. I thought it was powerful, I thought it was emotional, and I was disappointed again that 13 editors rejected it. And yeah, I'd really almost given up on that. And then I can't honestly say I know why. They liked it and the others didn't. I perhaps just got lucky. But I think with that one, because I knew once I'd written it that there was something true and emotional there, I held on to my guns and just kept sending it out. I think sometimes then this is the main lesson of this piece is that you should trust your instincts. Do you love your story? Do you, when you put your pen, who writes with a pen? Some people do, I suppose. When you push your computer aside and say, that's it, that's done, do you have a feeling of achievement? Do you have a feeling of excitement? Do you want to send it out to the world as soon as possible? These are all good signs, and they probably mean that you've written something worthwhile that's going to be in your personal shortlist of the best of your work. And those ones I think you should keep sending out. If you get notes back, look at them, consider them seriously. Could they improve your story? If so, maybe make some changes and send it out again. Consider if you're targeting properly. Is your story an appropriate genre for that magazine? It's very easy to get lazy and lackadaisical and cynical and stop reading stories from the publications you're sending stories to, but you've got to at least read opening paragraphs of things to find out what kind of stuff they publish. Is it the right length? Obviously there's no point sending a 1046 word story to a flash fiction publication that doesn't accept anything over 1,000, hoping that they're going to bend their rules for you, because it's not going to happen generally. Is it the right mood or style? You know, if this publication is very down the line literary fiction and you've given something that's kind of buoyantly weird and silly, maybe they're just not going to get it. It's not going to be for them. So basically, yeah, consider all those things. Sometimes it is okay to move on and then maybe come back a little bit later with a story if you've just got tired of being rejected on for the same one. Every so often I will send out one that I've given up for a while, in the hope that there'll be an editor out there that appreciates it. Or perhaps I'll read a call for entries and I think, there's that story, that actually might work. So that there's no harm in having a collection of things that haven't been published on the back burner that you can send out if you get an appropriate opportunity. And then, if you still love the stories and you get to the point where you're just sick of sending them out again and again and again, you can always do this. Publish them yourself. Now, I can't honestly say it's a great money spinner to publish a volume of short stories. Until you're famous, until you're well known for novels or some other form of writing, you're probably not going to sell more than a handful of copies. However, it's a great thing to do. What else are you going to do with them? It gives you publication history. It gives you some experience editing, which could be a useful skill if you want to earn some money on the side. And if you do sell novels and they do start selling well, you're going to suddenly start selling copies of your short story collection, I hope. And you'll be getting tasty royalties because you will have arranged, of course, if you've got any sense, that the book is sold for a price that gives you a decent royalty. You know, you could potentially get £1.50 on a copy of this if you sell it yourself through Amazon, whereas you get about 50p through a professional publisher. For the ebook version of this, I get about 60%, whereas I'd probably get about 35% from a publisher. I'm not sure, I have to check that, but it's definitely way more, or it can be. Obviously you are the one setting the price, so don't do yourself out of, royalties just to get a few sales. But I'll probably do a whole other piece on publishing this and the experience of putting it together creatively. I can't really talk about marketing because I'm clearly not very good at it. So, but it's amazing. It will change your life and stuff like that. So read it. Anyway, I hope you liked this little spiel. Just to say that those little orphan stories that you love and nobody else seems to care about might one day catch the eye of someone else who feels the same. It's just like finding a life partner. It might be a nightmarish search, but they're out there somewhere. And on that note, I shall leave you. Farewell.